a diva. I'm a diva. I'm a diva. I'm a diva.
Hey you guys, it's your girl Arlene with Diva on the Move, coming to you with a video that just like a girlfriend chit chat that I wanted to have with all of you out there. But something that I wanted to talk about was trust. I recently had the opportunity to listen to one of the Super Soul sessions that comes on the OWN station, Oprah's network, and an author who I've had the opportunity to read's book before, author Brene Brown. She also calls herself storyteller and researcher, and again, author Brene Brown. She wrote a book that I had the opportunity to read this past year, and it was called The Gifts of Imperfection. I highly recommend getting a copy of this book and reading it. It was a wonderful read. But in this particular session that I watched on the OWN network, it was about trust. And I have found myself asking, can I trust this person? Can I trust this relationship I'm in? It's something that I think many of us sometimes battle with. And there's times maybe when we don't even realize that we have put trust in someone that didn't necessarily deserve to receive your trust. And to protect yourself in the end, you have to sometimes question who you should be letting in to your life to that particular level, because I feel like we could have friends here, we could have friends there, and we kind of realize how to accept a person, and sometimes just to accept a person for whom they are, but realize that you have to kind of keep them at bay. So this particular session really helped me to kind of figure out, how do you determine whether a person should be trusted? And in this particular session, Brene Brown, I took some notes here that I'm going to kind of share with you as well too. But in this particular session, Brene Brown gave a story where she was saying how her young daughter, I think she was like maybe around age 9, and you know how in school girls can be tough, but her little girl came home from school, and as soon as she runs into the house, she, closes the door and just slopes down to the ground, and she just burst into tears. And Brene was asking her, what happened? And she was basically saying that it had been like the worst day of her life. She had shared some information with, a friend, and then that friend, did not hold that information in confidence, went back to others and had told others this most embarrassing thing about her. And next thing you know, everyone else was talking about it and laughing about it. And she was just completely humiliated by the whole entire situation. And so here she found herself trusting in someone who really couldn't be trusted. And so, Brene was talking to her daughter and tried to give an example of how whether you can trust in someone. And she gave the example of a marble jar. Certain things that will happen over time that allow you to know that you can trust in a person. And it's like adding in marbles, all of these different instances or moments in your relationship with this individual. And pretty much when you have that jar filled with those moments, you've kind of come to the point to where you can realize that you can trust in this person. And so she said that trust is built from very small moments in time that let you know that you can trust someone. One of the things that Brene does is she does a lot of research. And one of the things that she found out was in a survey that for a lot of people, a moment in time that allowed them to know that they could trust someone was when that person actually showed up for like a loved one's funeral. And let me say this, I recently had a holiday dinner with some girlfriends from my hometown, and I shared with them, my Duval girl, that was I recently shared with them how much it meant to me that all of them were at both of my parents' funerals. And you guys, in the past 5 years, I have lost both my mother and my father to cancer. And I felt like those were some people who had my back, that I could trust. I've known them for years, but when you have a person who takes a moment out of their own personal day to be there for you when you've dealt with such a significant loss, and you don't even have to go there and show them attention on that day up. It's just a matter of knowing them, knowing if they're there. That definitely was a significant moment. It was a marble jar moment for me with those friends. So the opportunity to build trust is the same as the opportunity to betray. So when a person is given a moment to where they know they could be there for you and they choose not to, pay attention to that as well. I was watching Sex and the City the other night, and it was the first movie, and this was a moment when Miranda contacted Carrie, and I think it was like New Year's Eve, and Carrie was like, oh my god, I was asleep. And Miranda's like, oh, don't worry about it. She was having a really, like a breakdown moment because she was by herself. She had recently separated from Steve, and she was just really sad that she was home alone on New Year's Eve. And she was like, oh, no, go back to sleep, Carrie. I'm sorry. Go back to sleep. You know, talk to you tomorrow. Happy New Year's. And Carrie was like, okay. And she hung up the phone. And Carrie was like, you know what? I need to be there with my friend. Knowing that I'm sure cab service is absolutely horrible, probably the subways as well too, in New York on New Year's Eve, that didn't matter. She jumped her behind out of that bed at like 11 something to get there just in time to celebrate New Year's Eve with her best friend. And that is a marble jar moment because she didn't have to do that, you guys. She didn't have to, you know, get out of her comfort of her own bed. She made that decision that was going to be important to her friend, and she did that. Like, she took that moment to go and be there with her. So, you know, that is a marble jar moment, to take that opportunity. That is a point when you have the opportunity to build trust with someone, and you take the opportunity to do it. And you guys, this doesn't even just apply to friendships. This applies to relationships as well with your significant other. So we have to share our lives with people whose jars are full. You know, people have to, over time, build that trust. And that's when we know that we can trust in that person. And we have to know that not every person is our safe person. You know, you can have that person where you have a conversation about something that's really bothering you, and, you know, they give their 2 cents, and their 2 cents doesn't seem like it's coming from the heart. That may not be your safe person. If that person is immediately judgmental, that may not be your safe person, okay? So you have to make sure that you're sharing your feelings, your moments of vulnerability with someone who can honestly just be there for you, who can honestly just listen and knows when to, you know, when to speak and to give a bit of advice. Sometimes it could be tough love, tough advice, but they do it from a place of love, and you can tell that genuineness. So what is trust? Trust is choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. So she went so much further in creating her definition for trust, and she came up with an acronym that spells out the word braving. So she starts off with B. B is boundaries. I can trust you if you are clear about your boundaries and you hold them and you respect them just the same as my boundaries. So I can have boundaries and you respect them, you honor them, and we're clear about that, and vice versa. So you have to have boundaries in a trusting relationship. Reliability. I can only trust that you'll do something if you do it consistently. So I can only trust you if you do what you say you are going to do, and not just one time, but every time. So a great example of that would be in a relationship. So if you're with someone and let's say it's cheating or it's staying out late, and that person says, you know, I'm not going to do that anymore, and you say okay, and you take them back, and they continue to do it, they are not being reliable. They're not being reliable. Therefore, they don't fit within the definition of trust. You have to do what you're going to say you are going to do. Not just one time, but every time. So as a friend, if you say that you're going to have my back, it's not just one time when you choose or feel like it, but it's every time. Make sense? Okay. The next one is accountability. I can only trust you if when you make a mistake, you can own it, apologize for it, and make amends. I can only trust you if I am allowed to make the same mistake. Accountability. Okay? The next one was vault. What I share with you is kept in that vault. It is held in confidence. Brene, sorry you guys. Brene gave an example in friendships where, and I'm guilty of this too, so forgive me. We'll use a story of another friend who information was probably given to us in confidence, but we go and we speak to another friend and we use a story from a different friend's situation, and it's almost to like build a relationship with this other person. So you can be like, well, you know, I have another friend and they went through this and they went through that. So what you're going through, it's understandable because I know somebody else that's been through that as well too. We didn't mean to share another friend's story. We were doing this to build a level of trust. But you guys, in our friendships and in our relationships, when something is given or told to us in confidence, we have to hold that in that vault. If that was ever repeated, that friend would probably be more than mortified. That is our opportunity again to build a level of trust by holding what our friend tells us in confidence. It's the same in relationships. I was talking to one of my girlfriends recently, and she was talking about how, you know, when you're sharing information with a friend and that friend goes back and repeats that to someone else, that doesn't allow you to trust them, and it can really be daunting on the friendship. Sometimes you have to say, girl, I need to keep this in confidence. It's between you and I. Or babe, you know, if I tell you this, is this just between you and I? And you really can't ever know if you tell someone something that they will never go back and share that with someone else, or that they may not bring that up and hold what you said against them. But again, these are marble jar moments. When you see that a person had the opportunity to bring something up or throw something back in your face and they don't, that's a person of trust. Something to think about and remember. The other one is integrity. I cannot be in a trusting relationship with you if you do not, with integrity, choose courage over comfort, or choose what's right over what's fast and easy. Y'all heard that? Let me say that again. You choose courage over comfort. And you choose what's right over what's fast and easy. If you have a friend and somebody else is saying something not so nice about that friend, and you take the opportunity to stand up for that friend, you have chosen integrity. And you can trust someone who will stand up for you. That is a friend. That is a true friend. And that is integrity, you guys. The next one would be non-judgment. I can fall apart and I can ask you for help and not be judged for it. And vice versa. You can fall apart and you can ask for help and I will not judge you for it. That again, you guys, that's non-judgment. And that is part of being in a trusting relationship with a friend, a lover, or whomever else. And if you don't feel like you can go to that person and ask them for something, then you have to question whether or not that is actually a true friend. And I mean, how many of us have friends or people who we call friends, but we would never think that we can call them last minute and say, my car broke down, I'm on the highway, can you come and pick me up? Can you do that? Or do you feel like you have to call a cab or a taxi? Things to think about. Do your friends know that they can call on you for that? Something else to think about. And I mean, we don't like to burden another person, but in your time of need, can you come to a friend and ask them that? Something to ask. The other thing is generosity. And this is the last one, you guys. Our relationship is only a trusting relationship if you can assume the most genuine intentions about my words and my actions. Again, generosity. Our relationship is only a trusting relationship if you can assume the most genuine of words and actions from me that you can trust. That is generosity. Genuineness. You know that when that person has said something to you, it is coming from out of love. Nowhere else but love. You guys, that is braving. That is Brené Brown's definition of what it means to trust. And she gave a really awesome quote that Maya Angelou gave in one of her books or one of her speaking engagements. And she was talking about how trust must first start within oneself. And you have to remember that when you trust someone else, you can't trust someone who doesn't already trust themselves. And the African proverb that Maya Angelou gave was, be wary of the naked man offering his shirt. I get tickled when I think about it. Be wary of the naked man offering you his shirt. A person can't give of what they don't already have. A person cannot trust if they don't first trust themselves. You guys, I would love to hear what you think about this. Any situations that you yourself have found yourselves in regards to having trust jeopardized in a relationship with friends or a significant other. Or if you want to share about that moment when you knew that you could trust in someone, I welcome you to comment below. Let's open up the discussion. Let's talk about trust, because so often we're trusting in those who we should not be trusting in. And so often we're overlooking those opportunities to build trust with people who we really want to build trust with. And so I encourage you, comment below. Let's start this conversation. And as always, you guys, I'm always big on empowerment. This is part of the Diva on the Move movement. And I hope that you will walk along with me. Thanks, you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.